Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts. This is so fun. I feel like just so great getting to catch up with you guys, Jeff and Natalie. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
Of course.
We're so excited. Thank you for having us.
Yes. Kind of feels like having extended family here. So that's really fun.
That's right.
Yes. So just so people know kind of our connection, my husband, Ben, was part of Arrows International, the company that you guys are currently directing and are founders of for a number of years. So definitely a lot of love and connection to the Arrows family.
Yes, that's right.
For sure.
Sowed a lot of seed and really was a foundational young man to part of the ministry, really helped see it off the ground and running.
Yeah.
So it was much of an honor to have him.
Yeah.
For sure.
Aww.
Yeah.
The
years that he was here with us.
Yeah. What year did you get married?
So we got married in 2014.
Okay. So we started in 2008. So 6 years.
Probably about six
about
so
6
years.
years. He was a part of the birthing stages at the beginning of Arrows International.
Yeah.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I just love kind of having been like on the outside, getting to look in a little bit towards the end of his time there. And then also since then, just seeing everything that God has done in and through you guys.
Yeah.
So encouraging. And I can't wait to be able to share that with our listeners today. So just to let people know who are listening a little bit about you, and I'll let you introduce yourselves as well. I'm here with Jeff and Natalie Lewis, and they are in Oklahoma. And like we were already mentioning, so I guess, Jeff, you're officially the artistic director, and then Natalie is the executive director of Arrows International, which is a dance company. And then also you guys have a Levitical training program, also, short-term trips going various nations across the world and different regions, and just so many exciting things happening there. And I encourage people to read your bios because both of you have just some really fun experiences, I feel like, in your past and things that the Lord has brought you into and through, and working with the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem for their feast and Dance Revolution, all sorts of, commercial dance and also just professional dance experiences. So yes, I encourage people to check that out, but I'll let y'all share just kind of the highlights as well. So maybe Jeff, do you want to start us off and just let us know a little bit about you and maybe a bit about your background and what got you to this place?
Sure. Yeah. So I had some success in school and in sports and stuff. I wrestled with school a little bit, but God got me into the theater. So I ended up in the theater program in my high school and began to love it and just loved to dance and had a knack for it. And I remember afterwards, I had an opportunity to go to a university for wrestling, and I decided to go into theater instead. And from that point on, it was musical theater and dancing and taking class and growing and growing and growing and began to really have a love for the theater and for dance. And that kind of set me on my course. Was raised in the things of the Lord in a Catholic church with my family. They were believers. My mom was the fiery one of the family, and my dad was a good man too, but my mom was a seeker. So she kind of went from the Catholic church to a kind of a spirit-filled church and kind of took the family with her. And that kind of set the fire for me.
Oh, cool.
To move into that realm and it started to have the revelation that it was to be unto the Lord, so that's kind of a nutshell testimony. Had lots of great opportunities in my journey where after I was married, my wife was really diligent about having me find a kind of a lifestyle, a work that I loved, that I would have a passion for. So I was dancing and doing theater and doing construction during the day, and God opened the door for a full-time dance director's job at a private school in Houston, Kincaid School, very elite, high-level school in Houston. And I ended up going there for 4 years. And that was like my college. I didn't go to college before. And when I was there, they would encourage me. And I ended up going to Rice University, and I went to New York on grants and studied and did all of that. So that was my time. And I was rubbing shoulders with great teachers there. You know what I mean? Like the best of the best. And so that was really my catapulting moment where I knew this was my call. And from there, I started to go into ministry, which is something I could share some of.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. I don't think I knew that about your background. So that's really fun. How about you, Natalie?
I mean, I grew up, my dad was like, you got to get her in dance class, because I would dance on my toes in the living room, So I think I was about 8 or 9 when I started dancing, and just loved it and knew that's what I wanted to do. And I went to college at Oklahoma City University and graduated and hit the ground running, and it's a great school. And so, yeah, I'm very blessed that I got to dance professionally and do the things that I love to do. But one of the cool things about what I got to do was that I got to dance for the Lord. And it wasn't until I was almost 30. So I feel like the Lord saved the best job for last, because most dancers, they want to either be in Broadway in New York City or, on tour, with a popular singer or artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got the best of both worlds, and I actually got to dance with Carmen, who is a Christian artist, and it was the largest tour in 2000 and 2001 called the Heart of the Champion Tour.
That's so fun.
And what's crazy is Jeff he actually toured, and Carmen was a part of the tour he was on. So it's crazy, our connection, how we both danced professionally and how we crossed paths sometimes and didn't even really know it,
Right. I feel like that's so fun how the Lord does that
at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we definitely engage with similar artists, So, for me, that was kind of what really kickstarted my journey with the Lord, because it was the first time I put God and dance together, and was a very significant turning point for me. But yeah, just really blessed to work with just some really amazing artists of today that were popular, whether they were on Broadway or, in the music industry. They were my choreographers for the shows that I got to perform in. So just incredibly blessed by that.
That is so cool. Yes. Well, I love just knowing you guys, and you're basically like, I would say, a power couple. I feel like that the Lord has put together with these sort of somewhat similar experiences, but also bringing in your own unique gifts, and then how the Lord brought you guys together is so cool as well. So do you guys want to just share a little bit about that journey, and then how you started? I think, Jeff, you were mentioning, getting into ministry as well. So maybe part of the story.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. I after working at Kincaid for several years, 4 years, it was like my college time, to be honest, the training. It was right then that God had called me out and to open up a place of my own. That's actually where I met your husband.
Yeah. Gift of Dance, right? Was it?
Yeah. Gift of Dance was the name of the ministry. And the name of the studio we opened as a Christian school was Call to Glory.
Yes.
And so it was Called to Glory. And that kind of got me into the Christian arts, and I met all the big names like Randy Flynn and, and all the different people that we all know. But so from there, it was our path began to go into that direction of the arts through Christian arts, and throughout time ended up with Dance Revolution. And through Dance Revolution is where we ended up meeting each other.
Yeah.
Project
Dance. That's right. Project Dance.
Dance Revolution. They all happened. Oh, damn. All 3 of those at the same time.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so we ended up meeting each other there. But it was through tragedy that really Natalie ended up coming into my life. And I was married for 23 years. And we went through 2 years of major shaking, and I know the listeners can understand what the shaking is, in their lives when they go through difficulties. And in those 2 years, it was really hard stuff. And we just don't have time to share it all. But at the end of it all, I lost my wife in a car accident, and that was really, really difficult. I was in Israel as a choreographer in the Feast of the Tabernacles and lost her in a car accident. It was a tragic accident. I mean, it involved some of the kids, and they're all good, but it was a very tragic moment. And from there, God began to. It was about 9 months after that accident, we lost Lisa, that God said, as I sat and had breakfast with my pastor, we looked at each other, began to cry, said, I really believe God's going to restore. There's going to be a restoring process to your life. And that even God would even bring a a wife into your life to help you with your kids. Because at this time I had 8 children.
Yeah.
So it was a really challenging moment, but this was the transition.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during that time that I was working with Dance Revolution.
Mhm.
And this was a touring kind of a, touring workshop type convention center. Yeah. Christian convention.
Mhm.
And Natalie was on that as well. And after about a year of being single, the Lord started doing something different.
Yeah. But he gave you the vision for Arrows International through it was birthed through the tragedy. Through
That's
the
right.
situation.
Yeah. Thanks, honey.
Yeah.
So yeah, before Natalie actually came into my life in that respects as my wife, God gave me a vision for Arrows International. It was during the end of all that shaking in that year of being single.
Mhm.
It was about a year and 5 months, but being single, God gave me a vision of Arrows International. I can share that a little later.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was clearly Carmen's tour was life-changing. So that's when my life did a 180. And it was after that tour that I knew I just wanted to serve the Lord full time. And I didn't know what that looked like. I feel like I pursued and did everything I wanted as a professional dancer, but God had something much bigger, and was really cool because he placed me in 3 key ministries that really transformed my life and really prepared me for Arrows International. Of course, I had no idea at the time. 7 years later, Arrows International was birthed.
Right.
But in that process, Project Dance was the very first thing when I actually met Jeff and all of the kings and queens doing artist work, to serve Cheryl right after 9/11. We all came together and blessed the city. But then, Dance Revolution, I think it was like only a couple weeks later, all the teachers were meeting each other. And of course, they were all there, and Jeff was on that team as well. And that's where I met him and got to know him a little bit more. And then, obviously through that, Randy Flynn had asked me to come be a part of Audam. So it was like a boom, boom, boom thing in such a quick time. I feel like it was like in a 2 or 3 month time span. The Lord just placed me in these 3 key ministries that were really significant in preparing me for the call, the bigger call in my life.
Right. Yeah. And how he was weaving that redemption story together, even like you said, through loss, through tragedy, that God is still at work, and we see his grace in that too, which is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you were talking about when you first kind of got that vision for Arrows International. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm probably at around 6 to 7 months of being single and just wrestling and asking God, what do we do? Where are we going? We went through a major shaking. It wasn't just losing Lisa. There was a ministry involved, and had to walk away from that, had to walk away from a home that went into foreclosure. I lost that home and all kinds of things that were difficult. And the kids and I would pray and ask God for guidance. And we had several offers to work around the world. Israel was one, a possibility to go to Israel and to move there. And also Tyler, Texas, to the YWAM base out there.
Oh, yeah.
There was an offering in Indiana, a full-time job with a good friend of mine that played in the NBA and is a pastor out there. It was a really nice offer. So there were a handful of opportunities, and actually Oklahoma, we had come here to do a workshop the past year, and so this was an opportunity too.
Yeah.
And the kids and I, we ended up praying, and one night, and we were at the YWAM base in Tyler, Texas. Great story. I'm looking at all of them, and I'm saying, we need direction. We need to know where we're supposed to go, because we knew where God was moving us. And I said, let's pray. Let's ask for a vision. Let's ask for a dream, something. God, show us, So that night we prayed, and I remember getting up the next morning. I look at the kids. I said, hey, did you get anything? I look at all of them. They're, no, Dad, no, nothing. And we had that day off before we were going to go home the next day. And we took them to the zoo, the Tyler Zoo. And while we were at the Tyler Zoo, I got a call from my personal secretary, who I hadn't talked to in several months. Hadn't talked to her. She had the dream the night before. The night we asked for the dream, she had it.
Cool.
And it was during that dream, she shares with me that day, the dream was Oklahoma. So out of the several places that we could have gone, Oklahoma was the place that God had called for us to go. And it was during that time when we got to Oklahoma, in that about 6 months or 7 months, that God began to reveal the vision for Arrows International. And I was on my way to a men's conference. A good friend of mine said, "Hey, just come to this men's conference. You don't have to teach, do anything. If you don't want to, just be there. We want to love on you. We know what you're going through." And so I went. And on that flight, God began to birth this vision, this vision of Arrows International. And again, it's a whole teaching that I could do and spend an hour and 15 minutes telling you about. But I'm not going to, but in its simplest form, it's being sharpened by the word of God. God said to me on the plane, he said, "Jeff, I want to create in you an arrow. I want to create in you an arrow." And he says, "I want to sharpen you by my word," which is the tip of the arrow. The word of God is sharp. We know that in Hebrews and also in Ephesians. It's a sword of the Spirit. Yeah. And then he says, "I want to balance you. Are you willing to come into me, to deny yourself, become that worshiper in spirit and truth, meditate upon the word day and night so that you will prosper and have great success as you activate it," right? All these things were a part of that teaching on the plane to become this arrow. And that's the shaft of the arrow. He is the potter and we're the clay. And so as we surrender and deny ourselves and come into him, he allows us to become that vessel, that pure vessel full of him, not just full, but overflowing. As we deny ourselves, we actually become overflowing with this presence so that it will touch others around us, right? And so then he said, as you learn to serve me, as you learn to wait on me, it's so beautiful. The Isaiah 40:31, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They will mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not go weary. And they will walk and not faint, right? That is so beautiful. They that wait means to braid yourself in God's presence, to be in him. Right. And then the renewing means to strike through. And it says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, mount up as wings as eagles. And then God said, these are the wings that I'm going to give you. They are the feathers of that arrow. So he began to show me through the scriptures, and there are many other scriptures that I won't share right now, but he began to show me through the word of God how I was going to become this arrow and that God is calling me to raise arrows in a sense. And so that's what happened during that men's conference. And of course, later God begins to give revelation that he's restoring everything, all the broken places, all the difficulty in my family, the losing of my wife, the losing of our home, our ministry. We had to let go of everything. We had to let go of everything in order to step into the new, and so that was a difficult, very difficult and yet beautiful picture. And that's when Natalie starts to come into my life,
Yeah.
So it's powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool because for me and my journey, like, of course, I was single, I was 30, wanting to get married, but I was really specific with the Lord because I wanted to marry somebody to do ministry together with. So single, married, no children, right? At 30 years old, and I'm pursuing the Lord, and he's placing me in these 3 key ministries, and they're all forming me and shaping me and molding me. Yeah. And I'm even being discipled and mentored in a mega church, really, and serving in 9 major ministries within the church. So I'm growing in that area as well. And through that process, that's was really cool because he was preparing me for Arrows International. He was preparing me for the vision of what I was about to step into, even though I had no clue, no idea. I was just serving the Lord, doing whatever it is that he had for me, in those different ministries. And it's beautiful how he brought us together because it was actually through a production. Well, it was through his hand and his spirit, right? But what's really cool is, yes, our testimony is very deep and very detailed. And so to get on to other things, but what was really cool is we were in this production called The Ring with Dance Revolution. So every year they do this big production, and such a powerful one. And in its simplest form, I played the bride that represented the church, telling them to wake up, get ready, your bridegroom is coming. And of course, Jeff, he played the bridegroom. And so we're like doing this prophetic picture of what we're about to do in real time, in real life. And, it's just only God can put together those puzzle pieces for us,
That's right.
and how he brings and how he births things in our lives.
That's
And
awesome.
so,
Yeah, it was really a really kind of a beautiful revelation as the Lord was opening my heart for Natalie in a different way than a sister in the Lord. It was
Mhm.
about a year after we start to rehearse this beautiful allegory. And God showed us in time as God began to reveal to her and myself that we were supposed to be together. God showed me a simple picture of two pencils, and you can try this at home if you're listening. You put those together in your hand and you draw a straight line. You have two lives right next to each other.
Mhm.
And that's what happened with us. We were journeying together with two lives, just walking side by side, brother and sister in the Lord, doing our thing as with a ministry team, a good sized ministry team.
Mhm.
And we're side by side, these two lives, and God does it suddenly. And if you do that, draw it on a piece of paper, you have a shaft of the arrow.
Yeah.
You end up with the shaft. And God gave me that revelation as we begin to see each other and realize that God was doing something bigger between us than just brother and sister.
Mhm.
He showed us that we were going to become the arrow, and had God had given me that vision to me, but I needed her to walk it out, which was really a beautiful thing. And she had, just as she shared a moment ago, she had walked out the journey of arrows, what arrows was going to be prior.
Yeah.
She'd traveled around the world. She ministered into the nations, and her call and destiny was already written. It's amazing how God does that. And it was such a very difficult time, but also a beautiful time of restoration and God's promises for her and the restoration of my family and my children.
Mhm.
It's been a beautiful, beautiful picture. It's difficult, yes, but has God's glory been revealed in so many ways,
Yeah.
in so many ways. God is so faithful
Yeah.
to see us through all things, guys, and anybody listening, whatever you go through, whatever kind of shaking or difficult moments you go through, if you can just pick yourself up and fix your eyes on our King, He's going to shine His light on you. He's going to show you through to the other side of this thing, and His glory will be revealed. And you will have as hard as it might be, you will have a testimony that will breathe life. That'll breathe life into all those that come around you, and even your life as you look up to Him.
Yeah.
So be encouraged in those things.
yeah. I mean, I think our testimony is so powerful in the sense of, for him, God was restoring, he was redeeming. For me, it was about waiting on his promises and seeing them revealed, and how God was faithful to position me and to get me where I needed to be when I needed to be there for the big picture, and for those promises that he had specifically for me. So, it's encouraging to hear, especially for single women, because that's part of my testimony is I was waiting for God to bring somebody into my life. I wasn't out there pursuing, as today, a lot of women think they have to make themselves present and pursue the man. But really, the word of God is very clear. It says, he that finds a wife finds a good thing. And so it's his job to do the finding. And that was one of the scriptures the Lord gave me, that he will find me when it's the right time. And, I knew I didn't need to do the pursuing. And he was faithful to bring about his promises for me. And through that, here we are today, right?
Exactly.
Traveling the world. We've been to over 20 nations so far, just with Arrows International.
Awesome.
And leading teams all over, discipling and mentoring, artists of today. So.
Amen. And there seems to be, even now, there's which is so encouraging, coming off of a very difficult time on the earth, with COVID and just the challenges throughout our U.S. and abroad.
Right.
We're seeing momentum. We're seeing a shift in momentum of God's presence and the fire of the Spirit and the new that He has and the love that He wants to share on the earth. We're seeing God move, and creatively as well, to birth those prophetic words that need to be uttered through movement or through our voices, that really hit to the heart of people, and really go to the deepest places of their lives and draws them to His door, So it's such an honor.
Yeah.
So cool. Yes. There's so many nuggets, I feel of wisdom and just encouragement and your testimony, your story. So I'm sure people were so good. Write down some of those things. And I just pray that it does encourage people's hearts to
Yeah.
continue to lean into the Lord, even, when things are harder, we're in a waiting season, those kind of
Yeah.
Sure.
areas of life. So yeah, well, I am curious just to hear from you guys, how has Arrows grown over the years? So I know now it's continued to build, and I would love to hear kind of what you guys are doing now. And then we can get into maybe a little bit about like the impact of the arts across the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know Natalie has a lot to share about this,
Yeah.
but I do want to say one thing. Several years back, we realized we had a revelation that, is this going to die with us, or are we going to hand it over?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is prevalent to where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to fast, and I think it was a 40-day fast. It was a pretty intense fast, and we just start crying out to God and asking, what are we to do? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
There were some changes on the property. A church had bought several of the buildings and facility, and we were in those buildings. And so we were thinking we're going to have to move or build a new facility, and so we began to fast and we seek in the Lord. And in long story short, we through our fast, we had a breakthrough moment, and I remember the breakthrough moment. I think we were in the car and we were interceding on the way to Branson, Missouri. And it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of praying consistently. And God just began to show us that it wasn't about our journey. It was about the generations to come. And so there was an element of our fast that we had the breakthrough that we're going to build generationally. Okay. That we're not going to die and this thing's going to die. We're going to hand it over. And I know that's not for everybody, but what God did, that's what he did to us. And at that point, when we got that revelation from God and that answered prayer, we begin to build generationally. And that's when things begin to shift and change.
Kind of shifts your perspective and mindset. Yeah, I'm sure.
That's right. And and honestly, how to build and the different structures that we're going to need in order to see it through. And, financially too, just believing for the windows of heaven and seeing how are we going to build that as well, that we can support the people that are serving, And so all of that has been a part of it. Maybe you can share some of that.
I mean, so obviously we started out with summer teams. Yeah. So this is our 16th. We're entering into the 16th year of the ministry.
That's awesome.
And the first 7 years were just summer teams. We had a local company that we would do, just some local work, within the US and mostly within our city. The call, though, has always been international as far as going out. We would go out in the summers and we would take summer teams. So we would prepare for 10 days and then we go out for 2 weeks. That still exists. And that's how we started. But in 2015, the Lord wanted us to birth a full-time program. And so that's what we have called the Levitical Trainee Program and Company. And so now we're starting to branch off. We're in our 9th season of the full-time program. And when I say branch off, because as you're building, it takes time to build the foundations and all the different elements of the trainee program and the company.
Right.
And so we're really in that place where we're trying to see how these entities still coexist together, but each have their own programs. So, they're both a discipleship program. Definitely. We're all about that. Obviously, the Levitical Trainee Program is geared more towards the individual, their identity, growing in who they are, growing in their character with the Lord.
Yeah. When we hear Levitical Training Program, I want the listeners to understand that we know that the Levitical ministry in the Bible wasn't necessary after the veil was torn, and the sacrifices and all that. So we definitely don't do those things, obviously.
Right.
But what we loved was a lot of the characteristics of the Levites, and their excellence and worship and offerings and artistry, and all the different areas of the Levitical, some of their training and the way they protected the house of God. They fought for the right things. And so the characteristics of them is what we teach. And so,
that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a time of setting yourself apart. So we really value coming here and setting yourself apart for the Lord and unto the Lord. And the discipling and mentoring is a really big part of that program. Obviously, there's a lot of studies. It's like going to Bible school, like the young lady who's here from Guyana, because we actually have a call, not just to the nations, but to bring the nations here.
Yes.
She's like, I love it. I get to dance and I get to go to Bible school all in one.
Yes.
It was like a perfect analogy,
Mhm.
But then, the company, they're the ones that kind of represent the professional area. So where we'll be doing more and more events, conferences, and things like that. But they're really key to the longevity and the legacy that he's talking about, the building, the foundation, because they're helping, in a sense, carry the vision and mission of the ministry. And so they're taking leadership positions and roles in different areas that we need that leadership, because as we grow, we can't just 2 or 3 of us run the full show. You got to have a crew and a team.
Yeah, for sure.
And so there's a lot of discipling and mentoring that goes in the leadership aspect for the company, and just building that team, even a closer unified team, and really also how to have a voice, because our company, they are beautiful dancers and they love to worship, because worship is the core of what we do in everything, in every aspect, but they also have voices, and the Lord has really been putting in them words of wisdom, where they're actually preaching a small word or a devotion, or a lot of testimony sharing, obviously combined with our pieces of choreography, really grab people. When you hear, especially because we're around a lot of youth and a lot of schools and stuff, they relate to their peers. And so hearing them share their testimonies really opens the doors. So not just visual arts that we release out when we go, but then hearing their voice, hearing them share their testimonies, or how this piece connects to them, it really speaks volume to the audience that we're in front of.
Yeah, for sure. I love y'all's heart for equipping people, or equipping the next generation, not just artistically, but also, like you said, that spiritual equipping as well. And also just continuing to raise them up. So you've already mentioned some of this, but kind of what does that look like day to day for you guys, just helping to equip both in the spiritual aspect and in artistry and in dance excellence?
I mean, we definitely have a lot of time every day, either doing devotion or discipleship time, which is almost an hour each day, just that. And woven within that is just time separated for worship, just being in his presence.
Yeah.
And it looks like a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Those are some of the key.
Yeah, for sure. I think like Natalie mentioned, the worship element of it, we really are, we're not dancers who worship, or worshipers who dance.
I love that.
Our worship is always first.
Yeah.
And it really is a foundational element of who we are, and we carry that wherever we go.
Yeah. I mean, the company has their separate discipleship time away from, but they also participate. We all participate in devotion and discipleship together.
Right.
So, I mean, some of our company have been with us 5 to 7 years now. So sometimes they're hearing the same message up to 7 times a year. And, one could say, well, I already know this, but I think they always say too, like, there's always something I'm learning new, even if I've heard it 7 times,
Yeah.
And it's so true. It's like the word of God. We're always getting new revelations and new wisdom when we read that word.
That's right.
Right. So it's beautiful because it also builds team unity for whatever the Lord is calling us to do. But as far as the Levitical, they have monthly memorizations with the scriptures, they have journaling moments. They have weekly scriptures that they memorize, book reports, books that will help guide them in their journey. And, some of them are specific, or some of them that are handpicked or hand chosen, but all unto God, and all to equip the inner core and outer core of the individual.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing. I was just curious kind of what that looks like more in the day-to-day. So like you mentioned, one of the big things about Eras International is the international element of it, right? And just the global vision and heart for not only going to people, but also, like you said, you guys have started to really bring in people from all over the world as well. So I'm just curious kind of what that's looked like, and your thoughts on why that's so important.
Well, we have a call to certain areas, to areas of the different nations from Central America and India. I think those are kind of our heartbeats, even though we do have a call globally to the nations in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to minister in the different nations and experience the different cultures, and people come to know the Lord through the arts, it's an open door to share the gospel in so many ways that the gospel can't get to, basically, right? For instance, in India, we don't just go to the church, but we're in those villages in the middle of nowhere. A lot of times it's very just dirt ground or a tarp laid out. It's rough. And then there are the moments when we're on the stage, right? Or in India, we've had people literally build platforms for us and roll out the red carpet.
Yeah.
It's really special, but the arts really draw people in, and we have a call to not just the youth. However, we do minister a lot to the youth, but to all the generations, to the elderly, to the people that are broken from, homeless shelters to prisons. We've been in prisons before multiple times in different nations.
Yeah.
It's a real call. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. It's at the nations, right? And God calls us to be a disciple into the nations. And so that call is on our hearts. And we're very thankful to be able to, again, our foundation is worship, right? Be able to carry that. The thing that's so cool about the Levitical idea, the Levites, they actually carried the tabernacle with them, and they would set it up wherever they went.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's such a beautiful thing. As an arrow, we get to be released to take that tent, in a sense, David's tabernacle, or the tabernacle of David, and take that tent, take that presence to that nation and diffuse that worship in that nation and see change. And since we're called to the nations, we're seeing, because of our call there, we're seeing lives come to know Christ. We're seeing people restored. We're seeing people catch a fire for the spirit that we've been able to release there, and these are supernatural moments because they're birthed by the Spirit. And we're very thankful that God called us to the nations, and now they're coming here more.
Yeah.
And we're equipping them to go back. See, that was part of the vision too, that we would create the arrow and then send them out, right, into the back to the nation. So that's actually manifesting now. And so it's been an incredibly rich, challenging journey, obviously very challenging, but in so many ways, that maybe we could talk about here, but it's been so glorious because we are truly seeing the revelation come to those that are listening, hearing, or in the presence of God. And we're seeing salvation, and we're seeing miracles, signs, and wonders. And God is increasing that in the creativity and in the move of His Spirit on the earth. We think it's not happening, and yet it really is. So it encourages that are listening. God is really moving. He's really moving, and His body, there is a fire, and His body's moving. And another thing that's really interesting, and this might be getting off, but as we made this decision, God really clarified our vision, for the nations, that time of fasting, those 40 days.
Yeah.
One of the things God showed us, that we were arrows on the ground, boots on the ground in a sense. So we had eyes to see needs, needs that were in these nations. And so the moment we had that revelation, we opened up another division of our ministry, which is like so exciting. It's called FAN, which is filling a need. It's an acronym.
Cool.
Right? So it's filling a need. And so we've already sown thousands and thousands and thousands into different nations and ministries in those nations, churches in India, Japan, and all over the world. We're sowing, and it's always a good sign that you're on the right path when like our vision was to sow a certain amount. And then we doubled the next year. We went from 20,000 to 41,000, and now we're believing for another to sow 60,000, and we're going to continue to go. And so I got off a little bit there.
I love that though. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the call to the nations was clear for us, and it's biblical, and it's something God put in our hearts. And now, the beautiful thing is they're coming to us. Right.
Yeah.
So now that part of that vision is starting to manifest too. I don't know how many internationals do we have right now?
7.
7 internationals.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 4 new ones. If we had this last visa that we're hoping for, we would probably have almost 10 this year. But we're going to get it this season.
Yeah.
We're going to get a trainee visa for the internationals. But we have overcome some serious visas by the grace of God. And it's beautiful to see it manifest and to see the 3 that have been here. Well, Christina is going into her 8th season with us.
Wow.
And she's a Canadian, and Madi, this is her 7th year, and she's Costa Rican.
Okay.
So he's opening the doors to the nations as well.
Yeah. And I imagine that creates such a rich experience in the program, because you have people that are from such a diverse range of backgrounds and experience and language and all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. I think also the birthing from a small beginning, and being faithful. There's been so much faith. We've activated faith in so many ways, and just getting Lysion here alone from Brazil was massive, in 15 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of believing and faithing, and he had to get on board in that faith too. It was all of us together. We were like believing, and we had that breakthrough.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's powerful.
It is powerful. I mean, the visa that he was applying for, we had already received 5 of them.
Okay.
With Christina and Madi. And so it should have been an easy yes, but we were also going through COVID in that time frame too. So our world was all upside down.
Right. Yeah.
But it is a faith step for all of the internationals. Everyone have a testimony, especially Christina, Madi, and Lysion. They all have testimonies of how the Lord even just clarified their call to the mission and vision of being here. And it's been really beautiful to be a part of that journey with them, because we're all taking active steps of faith, not just one individual. Together, we all take active steps of faith to walk in the fullness of what God has for us,
Yeah.
So
that's so cool. And that makes me think too, I'm sure there are so many stories of just moments where you have just seen God move in a powerful way, and it's just increased your faith. I know we don't have a ton of time, but maybe if you have 1 or 2 stories that you want to share through kind of the ministry of Arrows.
Where he's increased our faith.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, gosh,
so
visas
many.
alone are one. We won't even go into that. We
So
kind of already
many.
tapped into them, but there's so many.
There's so many. I'll share one that your husband was involved with.
Oh, cool.
Really. But it's just simple, but it was powerful. But we were in Central America, Costa Rica, I think. And we had a very busy itinerary. It went really well. We were at the end of our trip, and we were invited to a festival. And it was at the end of the festival. It was like one of our last days there.
It was on our day off.
It was on our day off, and we were like, no, we don't need a day off. We came to minister, and so the whole team decided to do this festival. And I remember we went out in this festival, and we went into this middle of this little fair area, and we were going to do our little presentation, and it started to rain. And as it rained, it was coming down, and I remember people were leaving, and people were getting underneath the tents and getting out of the rain, and
under their umbrellas,
and they're all like there, and we just decided by faith just to continue to move forward with our program.
Okay.
I think we first had a flutist come out, and he played. We had this amazing musician who played the flute, and he would just play spontaneously, and we began to worship the Lord and get the aroma and the rain coming down at the same time. But then when we began to present, we ended up doing a salvation call. And I think in the middle of our last day, in the middle of the rain, about 23 people came forward to receive Christ.
Wow.
I mean, it was a beautiful moment. And that's just a beautiful testimony.
Yeah. I mean, we were doing it on our day off, but the fact was we were dealing with rain, and it was like, well, we could have just decided not to do it, but we took the steps of faith, and God really brought provision from our sound system not working to having a flutist in the area who was just playing spontaneous, led to that. But then finally they were able to get the sound working. And so then we could actually present that salvation message. And through that, we saw people come to know the Lord. That's always exciting when you receive new people into the kingdom, right?
For sure. Yeah, you get to witness that happening.
To witness that. That's special.
I'll tell you, we've had so many supernatural moments around the world. Being faithful to follow through when God says to go. And we've been so faithful, I believe, that when he says, go here, go there, we've gone. We've taken the step of faith to go, to believe for the finances, to believe for all the choreography, to believe for everything to come into place. And then, he brings us there. Even in the midst of the storm, he brings us there. And I was just reminded of this as we were talking. Oh my goodness, how many times Arrows has taken an international trip, Rachel, and we've taken a trip just before 8.70 earthquake, or 8.70 earthquake, and then we go into the Amazons, and we end up ministering in the Amazons. Wow. Or we had 100-year flood in India, and we go right in after the 100-year flood. Or we're in Mauritius in East Africa. Just last year, we're in Mauritius, and we're ministering on this island. People are coming to the Lord. The aroma of God is spreading in the middle of a small island. A small island in the middle of this Hindu celebration of them carrying their gods, this pilgrimage all over the island. Yeah. And we're there releasing an aroma in the highest cyclone you can imagine. A Category 5 cyclone is coming towards that island 100 miles away. And God just used us there. It didn't affect us at all. We saw lives changed. And it was just amazing testimony in that particular situation. But in New Zealand, we were in New Zealand when Christ Church was attacked. 2 mosques were 49 people were shot in these mosques. The leadership there in New Zealand said it was their worst hour in the history of their island. Wow. And God put us there at that moment. And so, our call has been sure. Our call has been exact. It's like God showed us the target, and we went. China, we literally, you should share that testimony. Okay. But just so you understand, guys, when you answer the call, it doesn't mean that it's all going to be bed of roses. Right. But I'm telling you, if you're faithful to move in the direction through faith, don't just take that first step, not even the second, but keep going, third, fourth. God is going to open the floodgates. He's going to open the water and guide your path through. He's going to get you to the other side. And I'm telling you, there will be glory there. There will be lives changed, miracles, signs, and wonders. And that's what God has done through this ministry and our steps of faithfulness, and God is faithful to be faithful for us. He'll see you through and provide. You got to share that story.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Actually, Ben was on this trip as well. Oh, cool. This was back in 2011, and we got to work with a professional ballet contemporary company. And we were just gathering and just having class together and sharing our works and fellowship. It wasn't anything major. But at the end, we had invited them to come to one of our actual concerts, and they ran out and they wanted to give us their last concert program. And on the program, the front of the program was an actual target.
Wow.
It was this little black booklet that had a target on the front of it. Well, remember, we're Arrows International, and the whole idea is
promo thing was a target too.
Yes, Ben actually created the promo for the summer teams, and it was a passport. Yeah. And it had a target on it as well. But it's really cool because, obviously we're arrows in the hand of God to be released to hit the target, to hit the mark, right? And I mean, the fact that they gave us their program that they just did that had a target on it, we're like, okay, God, you're doing your work, right? And they ended up showing up, which was really cool because they're amazing. These were amazing artists, by the way. And it was just like very humbling that we got to, co-labor and be in their midst, really. And they came to our concert, and at the end of the concert, they didn't speak English very well, but enough to be able to communicate. And the director, the artistic director, literally, he just like reached for his heart and he said, "You have opened my heart." Yeah, and it was like he was moved in that moment by the spiritual things, because it wasn't a Christian company by any means, but the message was very clear. Yeah. And he received something, and that was very moving.
Yeah. Just another beautiful testimony of today, the Mauritius trip that we took.
Yes.
We had that cyclone. The cyclone was coming by the island, and it was 100 miles away. Anyways, we were invited. We had so much favor there. We were invited to do our presentation, a full concert in a brand new theater, 2-year-old theater in their main city there. And I'm telling you, it was a top of the line theater. It was very professional, beautiful theater. Mm-hmm. So we were selling tickets, and the tickets had sold out. Okay. So this is how we're going to end our trip.
Nice. Yeah.
So we're so excited to be able to really minister and bring people to the Lord and encourage people. And here this hurricane comes, right? And so several of the events were canceled, and ours could have been canceled, but we actually moved it a day after the cyclone, and it changed things a little bit. And I remember when we went to and do the production, we did our presentation, and I did an altar call, I did some testimony, did an altar call at the end of the program. And several arms are going up to receive Christ, and several arms go up to, rededicate themselves to the Lord. And we led these folks to the Lord. And I remember afterwards, I was talking to people, and this man came up to me. I think he was a Muslim. And he starts to tell me his testimony. And he says, I wanted to get a ticket, but I couldn't. It was sold out. And then the hurricane came, and God opened the door for me to have a ticket.
Wow.
And he shares his testimony. And I want you to know, I gave my life to the Lord tonight.
Wow, that's so
and isn't that a beautiful testimony? Yes. And so it's just one of many, many testimonies that we've had in our journey, just in the midst of the shaking, the midst of the storm, God breathes life, and when we're faithful to press through the difficulty, to fix our eyes on him, he reveals his glory. Yeah. His glory is just a manifested presence, his love and his miracles. And he does that to draw men unto him, And just a great story about that young man.
Yes,
beautiful testimony.
So beautiful. Yeah. So powerful. I feel like we probably could keep going for a long time with just the testimonies of God's goodness, and so powerful to hear. So thank you guys for sharing some of those. And as we're wrapping up today, I would love to let you guys share if you have a word of encouragement or just something that's on your heart right now to share with the artists that are listening.
Yeah, so I'll keep it pretty simple because I can get to preaching, but I really can. But I think I'm just going to share Matthew 7 and 8. It says, ask, seek, and knock, and the door will be open. And it goes on in verse 8 to say the persistent one that asks, one day the door will open. And I just want to encourage the listeners out there, don't stop asking. Don't stop knocking. Be persistent in your relationship with Christ, okay? The 7 is a completion, and the 8 is a new beginning. And we are in the Hebrew year 5784. And the 4 is the letter Dalet, D-A-L-E-T. And it is and I love Hebrew because they have letters and their shapes, and they mean there's like pictorials to them, right? They have a meaning and symbolism, and it's the tip of it is a lentil, and the side is a doorpost. And there's another word called Dalet, which is D-E. It sounds like delete, but Dalet, D-E-L-E-T, and that is the same letter that means Dalet, which is actually door or gate. Okay. So we're in a year of the door. And I believe that those that have been set apart, that have been persistent, God is going to open a door to you, a supernatural door that is just going to bless your socks off. And maybe something you've been praying for, something you've been believing for to take place. continue. Don't ever stop praying. Don't ever stop supping with God, because he's going to open that door that you've been hungry for, that you've been wanting. And you are in a anointed time on this earth, an anointed moment. And that door that he's going to open is supernatural. It's spiritual birth, and it's supernatural for you. So be encouraged in that.
So good.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, one of my just heartbeats is to see people fulfill their destiny and their call. And there's always these questions when you're younger, or you just graduated from high school or college or whatever, and you're in this season, you're just always asking God, what is it that you want from me? Where do I go? What do I do? And, we're living in such a beautiful time as artists specifically, where there are tons of beautiful ministries to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
Where, before there was just like, we had Ballet Magnificat, and then we had these handful of companies, but now God is just birthing companies all over, right? But there's something beautiful the Lord has been teaching me in my journey and my testimony. And the simplicity is that God wants us to bloom where we're planted. And so, well, how do you know where to go get planted? And I would say that God is faithful to position you where he wants you to be. In fact, he is so faithful. He's more faithful at getting you there than you are. And God will put people or situations in your life that will plant those seeds of visions that are connected to where he wants to call you. And I mean, even our dancers, there's such powerful testimonies in how they all found arrows, or how they're here, or from the point is, like, one of the dancers, for instance, she went to 3 different intensives, and all 3 of them, she heard about arrows. And the last one, Jeff and I were at in Connecticut.
Cool.
And then to find out she ends up getting here, and her grandparents, where she grew up when she was younger, is only 5 minutes from our base.
5 minutes they live there.
So, I mean, this is her 7th year with us. And like, God is so faithful. And so I think that looking for the signs, and I know that we're also living in a time, and I mean, I've heard this before, and that is a lot of times, I just want to try this. I want to try this. I get that, because I grew up even just dancing professionally. I didn't want to stay in the same place for 3 or 4 years doing the same job. I really was eager just to build my resume and to get these experiences so that I could give back. I understand all that. But there is some beauty when you find that place where God is, and you do your homework and you find where he's planting you. There is beauty in being planted. So I just want to encourage, find where you're supposed to go, ask the Lord, really do your due diligence, seek where he wants to position you, and then bloom there.
So good. Yes. Thank you both. That was awesome. I feel like this has been such a rich time, such just a really a gift to be able to spend this time and be able to share testimonies and hear your testimonies. And I always like to ask everyone, just for fun, what is one of your favorite things right now? So that'll be kind of our wrap-up question.
Well, I'll start. I'm excited because Matea, our youngest, is engaged, and we're going to be planning a wedding soon. So it's very, very exciting. Yeah. Exciting times in the Lewis family.
Fun.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes. I'm excited about birthing the new. I really am. I'm excited about going into a different realm with the Holy Spirit, into the heavenlies, where heaven is opening up, and we're getting to see things that we've never seen before, and birth things that we've never birthed before. So vision, running with vision, and creatively doing that, and just really seeing God move in that area. So I'm really excited about that.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes. So fun. Well, I would love to let people know how they can connect with you and with Arrows International. And I'm pretty sure you guys have like a virtual concert coming up, right? That
Yes.
that people can connect into that, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah. We're actually releasing our online concert because of COVID. We got really into filming and being more creative in our filming and creating pieces that really engage people. I mean, we're living in times where social media and things online is really popular. So our hope is to bless the nations, right? Because you don't have to be here in Oklahoma or where we are, but you can actually see us from anywhere around the world. And so from October 5th to the 15th, we'll be releasing a viewing time of the online concert. And you can just find us on social media, obviously, very easy. Arrows International, Facebook, Instagram, real popular, or our website. It's www.arrowsintl.org. So arrowsinternational.org.
Love it.
And international is abbreviated INTL.
Cool. Yes. And that online concert people can check out. I'm sure they'll be able to find it on social media as well. And or on, I think it's under like events on y'all's website. Looks like.
Yes.
So, and I saw the trailer. It looks so good. I'm so excited. So people definitely need to check that out, called Heaven is Closer Than Ever. I'm sure it's going to be a powerful, powerful time. So yeah, well, I just can't thank you guys enough for taking the time to be here and share your journeys and to be able to just encourage everyone that's listening and joining us today. So thank you so much and blessings to you guys and to Arrows as you guys continue forward in the mission that God has for you. So
for sure. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having us.
And we thank God for your beautiful husband too.
Yes, so do I.
Yes.
He's a good man.
He is. Yes. Thank you guys. You can find all the links, full show notes, and additional resources on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. If you're interested in supporting the show, some great ways to do that are to share it with a friend, to rate and review wherever you're listening. And then also, if you're interested in giving financially, you can check out our Patreon community, where you get bonus content each month and have a special part in helping make this podcast possible. You can access our Patreon community on the link at our website or by going to creativeimpactpodcast.com/PATREON. Thank you all so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Until next time, remember that you were designed to create. You were made to inspire. Continue living with purpose and making an impact. I'll see you next time, friends.